The stillness of the desert night is shattered by the sharp sound of a gunshot. Dustin Hayes stands, sweat running down his forehead, his revolver still smoking. A shadow in the distance, barely visible under the waning moon, holds a rifle aimed squarely at his chest. His heart pounds. His life has been leading to this moment, but he knows that in this world of endless dust and isolation, one shot could change everything. His past, his sins, they've all caught up to him. And now, the confrontation. He's running out of options. But there's a feeling deep inside him, a faint flicker of hope that he might still find redemption. He doesn't know if he'll survive this encounter, but he knows he has to try. The desert winds pick up, making the silence even more unbearable, as though the land itself is waiting for the first move to be made. The morning sun casts a pale light over the horizon as Dustin rides across the barren plains, lost in thought. The wind whips against his face, and memories of a long-past betrayal flood his mind. He had once trusted too easily, but now his heart is harder and his eyes sharper. The town of Red Oak is close, and with it, the past he's tried to outrun. But some things can never be outrun. The ghosts of his past, the choices he's made, they're all waiting for him in that town. And it feels like fate has drawn him back. As Dustin nears the town, the signs of life become more evident, the distant hum of conversation, the faint clink of metal against metal, the smell of fresh-baked bread mixing with the pungent scent of leather and sweat. Sheriff Lawson watches from the porch of the sheriff's office, his hand resting on the butt of his holstered gun. There's history between them, but no words are exchanged. Not yet. The tension in the air is thick with the weight of old wounds, the ghosts of their past encounters hanging over them. It's a standoff in every sense. As Dustin enters the town, he feels the weight of every eye on him. There's no hiding who he is here. The townsfolk whisper in hushed tones, pointing fingers and casting long glances. But Dustin keeps walking, his eyes fixed on the saloon ahead. It's been years, but some things never change. The old buildings, the familiar dusty roads, the faces that never forgot him. It all feels like a painful reminder of what he's left behind. Dustin sits at a corner table in the saloon, the hum of conversation surrounding him, but his mind is elsewhere. A man enters and Dustin stiffens. It's Clayton Driscoll, the man he's been tracking for years. He knows this moment will define everything. All the years of searching, all the pain of the past will come down to this. Will Dustin seek revenge, or will he choose redemption? There's no turning back now. The wind howls through the town, carrying with it the dust of forgotten days. Dustin stares across the room at Clayton Driscoll, his old enemy, the man who once betrayed him. The years haven't changed Clayton, still sharp-eyed, still dangerous. Dustin's heart beats faster, a wave of anger surging through him. Every detail of their past comes flooding back, the lies, the betrayal, the lost years. Clayton smirks, as if he's waiting for Dustin to speak first, but the silence only deepens the tension between them. Dustin knows this moment could define everything, but he's not sure what he's willing to sacrifice to put an end to it. The decision isn't easy, and the air is thick with unsaid words. The conversation between Dustin and Clayton is terse, each word carefully chosen. Clayton casually sips from his glass, never breaking eye contact with Dustin, as if trying to provoke him. Dustin's hand rests on his gun, his fingers itching to draw, but he holds back. He remembers what happened the last time he acted out of rage. It cost him everything. But with Clayton, it feels like the past is closing in, the unresolved anger threatening to break free. The silence stretches, and finally, Clayton speaks. "You should have stayed away, Hayes," he says, his voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you've walked into." Dustin's jaw tightens at the mention of his past. His mind races, replaying every mistake, every decision that led him here. The weight of his choices presses down on him, suffocating him. He looks away, momentarily losing his composure, but the anger quickly returns. He can't let this man win. "I didn't come back for you," he says, his voice steady but filled with underlying fury. "I came back for something you took from me." Clayton raises an eyebrow, clearly amused. You still think you can take it back, don't you? The words hang in the air like a challenge. The conversation is interrupted by the door swinging open, and a figure steps inside, casting a long shadow across the floor. Dustin doesn't recognize the newcomer at first, but the man's presence changes the energy in the room. It's as though a storm has entered. Clayton straightens, a sudden shift in his demeanor. "We'll pick this up later," he says, his voice smooth, but there's a flicker of concern in his eyes. The stranger moves through the room with ease, his eyes scanning everyone before settling on Dustin. "You the one causing all this trouble?" the man asks, his voice rough and direct. Dustin doesn't answer immediately, his gaze flicking to Clayton, who seems to be sizing up the situation. A new player has arrived, but Dustin can't tell if this is a friend or another enemy. The newcomer walks toward Dustin without hesitation, his gaze locked on him. Dustin stands his ground, wary of this unexpected turn of events. Clayton's eyes flick back and forth between them, his fingers twitching near his gun, but he doesn't make a move. The stranger stops just short of Dustin, his face serious. "I know who you are," he says quietly, "and I know why you're here." Dustin narrows his eyes. "Then you should know I didn't come here to make friends." The man gives a slight nod. "No, you didn't. But you'll need more than a gun to get what you're after." The words hang in the air, and Dustin knows the game has changed. He's no longer just chasing down Clayton. There's something bigger at play here, and now he has no choice but to follow this new lead. The following morning, Dustin stands at the edge of town, staring out across the desert landscape. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting an orange glow over the barren land. He's never been one for solitude, but today, the silence feels different. He's been chasing something for so long: vengeance, justice, redemption. But now, with the appearance of the stranger, everything has shifted. Dustin knows that the journey ahead isn't just about confronting Clayton, it's about something deeper, something buried long ago. He clenches his fists, the weight of the past bearing down on him. Before he can turn back, a voice calls out from behind him. "You're not alone, you know." It's the stranger, walking toward him with the same determined step. Dustin doesn't respond at first, but the words hang in the air, offering a flicker of hope. As they walk together, Dustin remains silent, lost in thought. The stranger matches his pace, walking beside him without saying a word. The desert stretches out endlessly before them, the sun beating down on the dusty trail. Finally, Dustin breaks the silence. "You said you knew why I came back." The stranger nods but doesn't meet his gaze. "I do," he replies. "But the question is whether you're ready to face what's waiting for you." Dustin's eyes narrow, but he keeps his voice steady. "I've faced worse." The stranger stops, turning to face him. "Not like this," he says quietly, "not when the ghosts of your past are right in front of you." Dustin feels a chill run down his spine. The stranger's words are like a slap to the face, a reminder of the pain he's been running from. "I'll handle it," Dustin says, his voice hard. But deep down he wonders if he's really ready for what lies ahead. The day passes in silence, with only the sound of their boots crunching on the dirt road. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows over the land, the stranger finally speaks again. "You can't outrun your past forever, Dustin," he says. "I know you want to, but that's not how this ends." Dustin stops walking, turning to face him. "And how do you know that?" he demands. The stranger meets his gaze with quiet certainty. "Because I've been there," he replies. "I've tried to outrun my own demons, and I lost everything." The words hit Dustin like a punch to the gut. He doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to acknowledge the truth in the stranger's voice. But deep down, he knows the man is right. He's been running for years, but now, he has no choice but to face the truth. That night, Dustin sits by the campfire, staring into the flames as they flicker in the still air. The warmth of the fire contrasts sharply with the coldness inside him. The stranger is nearby, sharpening his knife in silence. Dustin's mind races, but there's a calmness to the night that he can't ignore. It's as if the desert itself is holding its breath, waiting for something. Dustin breaks the silence again. "What's your name?" The stranger looks up briefly, then goes back to his work. "You'll know soon enough," he says, his voice low. "But for now, I'm just someone who's seen too much." Dustin nods, understanding more than he lets on. They both have scars. Some old, some new. The fire crackles, the only sound in the quiet night, as Dustin reflects on everything that's led him here. As the night grows darker, the tension between the two men continues to build. Dustin knows that the coming days will be filled with difficult choices, but for the first time in a long while, he feels a flicker of something he hasn't felt in years: hope. The stranger's words linger in his mind, stirring something deep within him. He's always believed that redemption is something you have to earn, but maybe, just maybe, it's something you can find in the most unexpected places. Dustin looks over at the stranger one last time before speaking again. "Whatever happens, I'm ready," he says quietly. The stranger doesn't respond, but the silent understanding between them speaks volumes. Tomorrow, the journey continues, and Dustin knows he's not facing it alone. The sun is high in the sky as Dustin and the stranger approach a small, dilapidated town. The buildings look as though they've been abandoned for years, but Dustin knows better. There's a life here, even if it's a life that barely survives. The wind kicks up dust as they walk into the town square. The air is heavy with the scent of old leather and decay. Dustin's hand hovers near his gun holster, instinct sharpening as he senses something is off. The stranger stops and glances at him. "This town isn't what it seems," he says quietly. Dustin eyes the buildings cautiously. "No town ever is," he mutters. As they walk further into the town, Dustin's gut twists with unease. It's as if every shadow is hiding a secret. As they move deeper into the town, a figure emerges from the shadows of one of the dilapidated buildings. It's a woman, her face hidden by a wide-brimmed hat, but there's a haunting familiarity in the way she walks. Dustin tenses immediately, but the stranger doesn't react. The woman stops in front of them, her gaze sharp and calculating. "I've been waiting for you," she says to Dustin, her voice low and steady. He stares at her, trying to place her, but something about her presence unnerves him. "Who are you?" Dustin demands. She tilts her head slightly, a small knowing smile forming on her lips. "You know exactly who I am," she replies, her voice dripping with unspoken history. Dustin feels the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He's walked into something much darker than he expected. Dustin steps forward, his boots kicking up gravel as he moves closer. "What do you want from me?" he asks, his voice cold. The woman's smile fades, replaced by a steely gaze. "I'm not here for you," she says. "I'm here for him." She looks directly at the stranger, her eyes narrowing. Dustin looks at the stranger, confused. Who is she? The stranger doesn't respond at first, but then he lets out a long, exhausted breath. "She's someone from my past," he mutters. "A past I tried to leave behind." The woman steps closer to Dustin, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You're not just chasing the sunset, Dustin," she says, her words chilling. "You're chasing a ghost." The weight of her words hangs in the air, and for the first time, Dustin feels as though he's not in control of this journey anymore. The woman walks past them, heading toward a nearby barn. Dustin watches her, his mind racing with questions. "You didn't tell me about her," he says to the stranger, frustration building in his chest. The stranger doesn't answer at first, his eyes following the woman as she disappears into the barn. "I didn't want you to know," he admits finally. Dustin feels a sense of betrayal, but he doesn't know if he can afford to feel it right now. "Why didn't you tell me?" he presses, his voice harsh. The stranger sighs and looks down at the ground. "Some things are better left buried, Dustin." But Dustin isn't ready to let it go. He steps closer to the stranger. "Not anymore," he says firmly. "We're in this together now." The stranger hesitates but then nods, the weight of the past pressing down on him. As they approach the barn, Dustin can feel the tension in the air, thick as the dust that clings to his skin. The door creaks open, and the two men step inside. The woman stands near the far wall, her arms crossed. This is it, she says, her voice low. The truth you've been running from. Dustin looks around, but the barn is empty, save for a few crates and old tools. What truth? He asks, his voice edged with impatience. The woman looks directly at him. The truth about why you came here, she says, her gaze piercing. You didn't just come to find Clayton, did you? Dustin freezes, the air around him thick with anticipation. What are you talking about? He demands. She steps forward, her face hardening. You came here to face something you've buried deep inside yourself. The silence in the barn is suffocating as Dustin stares at the woman, trying to process her words. What do you mean? He asks, his voice a mix of confusion and disbelief. The woman steps closer, her eyes never leaving his. You didn't just come here to find Clayton, Dustin. You came to find your redemption. Her words hit him like a cold gust of wind. Dustin takes a step back, shaking his head. I'm no hero, he mutters, his voice filled with bitterness. I'm just looking for the truth. The woman tilts her head slightly, studying him. The truth is that you've been running from your past for years. And now, it's here, staring you in the face. Dustin feels a knot tighten in his chest. What do you want from me? He asks, his voice growing more desperate. The woman steps back, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I want you to face what you've been running from, she says softly. Dustin clenches his fists, his anger boiling just beneath the surface. I didn't ask for this, he growls, his eyes flashing with frustration. I didn't ask to be dragged into some mess that's not even mine. The woman's smile fades, replaced by a more serious expression. But it is yours, Dustin. Your past is intertwined with this. You can't outrun it. Dustin looks away, his jaw clenched tightly. He knows she's right, but the thought of confronting his past feels like a weight too heavy to bear. I've been through enough, he mutters, his voice strained. I'm not ready to face it. The woman's gaze softens. Then you'll keep running forever, she says quietly. But the truth is here, and it's time to face it. Dustin takes a deep breath, his chest tightening as he feels the weight of her words. What do you want me to do? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's expression softens as she steps closer, her voice gentle. I want you to stop running, she says. I want you to confront what you've buried. It's the only way you'll find peace. Dustin looks down at the ground, his thoughts racing. He's always thought he could outrun his past, that he could find redemption without facing what he's done. But now, standing here in this dilapidated barn, the truth feels unavoidable. I don't know if I can, he says, his voice breaking. The woman places a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm. You're stronger than you think, Dustin, she says softly. And you don't have to do it alone. After a long silence, Dustin finally lifts his head, determination settling into his features. All right, he says, his voice steadier now. I'll face it. The woman nods approvingly, a small smile crossing her face. Good, she replies, her voice filled with pride. But remember, the truth isn't always what we expect. It can hurt, but it's the only way to heal. Dustin nods, though he's unsure of what to expect. The past has a way of resurfacing in the most painful of ways, and he knows the road ahead won't be easy. But for the first time in a long while, he feels ready to face it. Let's do it, he says firmly, his voice filled with resolve. The woman steps back, motioning toward the far corner of the barn. The truth is waiting for you, she says quietly. But you'll have to face it alone. As Dustin approaches the corner of the barn, he notices an old chest, its surface covered in dust. His heart races as he kneels before it, his hands shaking slightly. The chest creaks open, revealing a stack of old letters and faded photographs. He flips through them, his eyes widening as he uncovers a series of images from his past, images he thought he'd left behind. The last photo is of a man he thought was long gone. His father. Dustin stares at the photograph, a mix of disbelief and anger swelling in his chest. I've been chasing this damn sunset for too long, he mutters, his voice hoarse. And now, I find out the truth is right here. The woman steps forward, placing a hand on his back. It's time to stop running, she says quietly. The past is part of you, but it doesn't define you. Dustin stands in front of the barn, the photograph of his father still clutched in his hand. The wind howls through the cracks in the wooden structure, carrying with it the sound of distant hooves. He hears the familiar thud of boots on dirt, and his heart tightens. His gaze hardens as he looks toward the horizon. It's all led to this, he mutters to himself, tightening his grip on the revolver tucked into his belt. A figure emerges from the dust, silhouetted against the setting sun. Clayton, the man he's been hunting, steps forward, a smirk on his face. Didn't think you'd come this far, Dustin, Clayton drawls, his voice dripping with smugness. But here we are, facing down the sunset. Just like you always wanted. Dustin glares at him, his jaw clenched. You've had your fun, he growls. Now it's my turn to make things right. The tension in the air is palpable as Dustin and Clayton stare each other down. You always thought you were better than me, Clayton taunts, his smile widening. That's why you've been chasing me all these years, huh? Because you thought you could bring me to justice. But here I am, standing tall while you've been running from your own damn ghosts. Dustin's grip on the photograph tightens, his breathing slow and steady. You don't know anything about ghosts, he replies coldly. I'm not here for justice. I'm here for the truth. He takes a step forward, his eyes never leaving Clayton's. And it's time for you to face it. The silence breaks as Dustin pulls his revolver from its holster, the metallic click echoing in the stillness. Clayton laughs darkly, raising his hands in mock surrender. You really think this will end how you want it to? He sneers. You're just like your father. Weak, stupid. You'll never be the hero you're trying so hard to be. Dustin's eyes flash with anger, but he doesn't flinch. Maybe I'm not trying to be a hero, he mutters, his finger resting on the trigger. Maybe I'm just trying to be something you'll never understand. He steps forward, the revolver trained on Clayton. And that's why you're going to lose. Just as Dustin is about to pull the trigger, a loud gunshot rings out, sending a shockwave of sound through the air. Dustin's arm jerks, and his eyes widen as he turns toward the source of the shot. A figure emerges from the shadows, the velvet blade holding a smoking revolver. Not so fast, Dustin, he says coldly, his eyes fixed on the outlaw. Dustin's heart skips a beat, but he doesn't lower his gun. What are you doing here? He demands. The velvet blade smirks, lowering his own weapon slowly. Saving you from making a mistake, he replies. You don't want to be the one who pulls that trigger, not today. Dustin stands motionless for a moment, his mind racing. The velvet blade's intervention has thrown him off balance. But as he looks at the man in front of him, he realizes something. Clayton is no longer the monster he once believed him to be. The anger that burned inside him is starting to fade, replaced by something else. A deeper understanding. It's over, isn't it? Dustin murmurs, his voice quieter than before. The velvet blade nods slowly, lowering his weapon. It was always going to be, he says quietly. Dustin exhales, a weight lifting from his shoulders. He turns to Clayton, his voice steady. You're not the one I was hunting. I've been running from myself for far too long. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dry, cracked earth. Dustin takes a deep breath, the weight of his journey settling upon him. The past few days, the fights, the betrayals, they all led to this final moment. Standing on the edge of the world, with nothing but the endless stretch of desert before him, he feels a sense of finality. It's done, he whispers to himself. He looks at Clayton, the man who was once his enemy, now nothing more than a broken figure in the fading light. You won, Clayton says weakly, his hands raised in defeat. What happens now? Dustin's gaze hardens. Now, we live with the consequences, he says quietly. It's time for us both to move on. As the last light of day fades, Dustin walks towards his horse, his steps heavy but resolute. He runs a hand over the reins, feeling the worn leather beneath his fingers. The velvet blade steps up behind him, silent for a moment. You're leaving, he says, more of a statement than a question. Dustin nods, his eyes fixed on the horizon. I have nothing left here. I've made my peace. The velvet blade watches him for a moment before nodding in understanding. You've earned it, he replies quietly. But just remember, peace is a hard thing to hold onto in this world. It slips through your fingers. Dustin turns to him, his face hard. Then, I'll just have to hold it tighter. As Dustin begins to mount his horse, he pauses, glancing back at the barn in the distance. The wind picks up, carrying with it the faint sound of the past, of gunfire, of voices, of memories he thought he had buried. He hesitates, his fingers tightening on the reins. I don't know if I'll ever truly leave this place, he mutters. The velvet blade watches him, his voice low. You'll never really leave it. It'll follow you, haunt you. But that's the price of living. Dustin turns, looking him in the eye. Then it's a price I'm willing to pay. With that, he nudges his horse forward, riding into the night. The sound of hooves is the only noise that accompanies Dustin as he rides deeper into the desert night. His thoughts are a whirlwind of emotions, anger, regret, but also something new, something unfamiliar, hope. The journey has taken its toll, but for the first time in a long while, he feels a sense of purpose. The road ahead is uncertain, but it is his to walk. As he looks toward the rising stars, he feels the weight of his past, but also the possibility of a new beginning. The horizon calls to him, and for the first time, Dustin is ready to chase it. As Dustin disappears into the distance, the camera lingers on the empty horizon, the desert vast and silent. A gust of wind blows across the scene, carrying with it the weight of everything that has happened. The camera slowly pans up, capturing the full expanse of the night sky. A single star shines brighter than the rest, its light unwavering in the darkness. Dustin may have left the past behind, but the story, like the desert, will continue. The wind whispers across the barren land, carrying with it the echoes of a life lived, a journey still unfolding.